It is said that software is eating the world. I'd like to be more specific and say that Linux is eating the world. According to Alexa, 96% of the top 1 million web services are running on Linux. On an operating system like this, you not only have basic features like file system, threads, virtual memory, sockets, and many other aspects, decades of software stacks, libraries, services, frameworks that evolved on top of it like archaeological layers, one on top of the other, and they keep evolving nowadays. Blockchain has promised to be the substrate for something that's very exciting. We have been talking a lot in the last years about decentralized applications. And blockchains are able to work like world computers, in which the participants, they achieve consensus over all the computations that happen on top of it. That was the great insight from Ethereum initially. On Ethereum, you have this network of computers that achieve consensus on general computations. The problem is, if you take blockchains like Ethereum and other blockchains that support smart contracts, and you are a software developer willing to develop your DApp, you're gonna face extreme limitations. All this technology is very immature and very limited. You don't have the software tools, frameworks, stacks that usually mainstream software developers they will have to develop their conventional applications. Instead of having a full OS in which you have file system, you can open files, compress and decompress things, and do all the magic that you're able to do on top of these layers of software, you are limited to languages that don't support many things, even doing very basic stuff like converting a number to string can be very problematic. Another aspect that hinders the adoption of developers creating DApps on top of blockchains is the famous scalability issue. Running computation and storing data on blockchains tend to be very expensive. And that is due to the fact that in order to achieve consensus, all the full nodes from the public blockchain network, they need to repeat all computation, all calculation, and every single byte that is stored in the network. So really, if you look at blockchain supporting smart contracts as computers, they are very bad computers. I'll give an example. Suppose that you want to implement a two-player game like Go or chess on top of Ethereum. Now, if I develop my chess logic in Solidity and I'm playing chess with you, I'm gonna start a game by moving my horse. When I move my horse, this is a transaction on the blockchain. Every single full nodes across the network, and you have more than 12,000 full nodes running Ethereum, they're gonna have to repeat this horse movement. Ask yourself, if I'm playing chess with you, why does someone in another remote country, Australia, Japan, the US, Brazil, that are not involved at all with our game, has to repeat our move? This is extremely greedy as a computational approach, and it is a waste. Of course, we want to achieve consensus at the end of the day, so what we can do instead of that is to implement our chess game in a way that the two of us are gonna interact with each other without using the resources of the blockchain. And as long as we are agreeing on whatever is happening between the two of us, we can just go to the blockchain at the end of our match and say, look, the two of us reached an agreement, I win the game, And let's say I need to receive the betting money from the two of us to my account. If the two of us agree with the result of the game, a single transaction is necessary to settle that financial result. That's what we're doing with Cartesi. With Cartesi, we are allowing for DApps to move all computations, all data that's possible from the blockchain to a second layer that's not using the resources of the blockchain. These parties that are involved, they are incentivized to engage with the DApp in the most efficient and cost-effective way. As long as they're not trying to cheat, they're just going to use the blockchain in the end to settle a final transaction. Now, if they try to cheat, if someone is acting maliciously, then the blockchain is used as a Supreme Court to defend the interests of the honest party. If you have a heavy computation happening on the second layer, on the Cartesi system, and there is cheating involved, the blockchain will need to figure out who is dishonest. And for that, the blockchain doesn't need to repeat the entire computation that could be impossible to do in first place on-chain. Instead, we use the well-known interactive dispute resolution method called verification game, which has also been used by other layer 2 projects to solve these disputes, this arbitration, in a very efficient and cost-effective way. Essentially, the blockchain engages the parties involved in an interactive procedure that reduces the entire computation that was done off-chain to a single microprocessor step that's run on-chain to check who is right and who is wrong. This is a crypto-economic protocol that involves economic incentives. This is very well described in our articles that you can find on Medium and also extensively on our white paper. The second very important aspect of our technology is that you can develop the logic of your DApps using traditional software stacks, because we have a VM architecture that is able to run a full Linux OS. So you're able to use OS resources like file system. So for instance, you can have a DApp that relies on the logic of compressing or decompressing files. Or perhaps you want to use a zero-knowledge library that has been already well established and developed over many years on Linux and is stable enough, you just need to compile and deploy on the Cartesi machine. Or perhaps you want to develop your own poker game, your decentralized poker game, using a mental poker algorithm, which has also been developed and exists as open source, as a library that you can download from GitHub and reuse in your DApp. There are many amazing opportunities that we open with this system, and we are very excited to discuss Cartesi with you. We have our Discord channel in which we welcome all developers and tech people to bring their questions and engage with us, bringing ideas, doubts, concerns, criticism, whatever you like. So, welcome.